Part 2 of the check engine codes for Mazda 606, Millenia, MX6, and this may apply to many other vehicles. I believe I failed to mention before that some cars may actually show a specific code for default for the manufacturer. I've seen Honda specific codes, Volkswagen specific codes, and many other car makers. Just pursue them, and usually on a scan tool they're pretty dead on with what they're about. But with specific engine codes, sometimes you may actually have to look into them and perhaps take it to the dealer. On part 1, we actually left off in the ignition input circuit fault, so we're going to pick it up right after that. So P0335 crankshaft position sensor or circuit fault. So if you've been following the series of repairs on my Mazdas, I show you where the harness is on the top of the engine, passenger side, but the crankshaft is actually at the bottom of the vehicle near the oil pan, right behind the pulley, crankshaft pulley. And they do go bad. I have seen many Hondas where they actually have a problem with them, or many other cars, and they just go bad. And understand that it's always working. It's one of those sensors that is always constantly working. And it's just basically telling the computer the rotation of the crankshaft, where the position is for the cylinders that is actually in that crankshaft. So check that the wiring is good, and of course pursue the sensor. I have seen them go bad. The camshaft, P0340. Now this one can be a little tricky. I have seen many Hondas, not Mazdas, and many other vendors where the P0340 points to the camshaft and they just slap on a new camshaft sensor and the problem's still there. And what I have seen is it needs a tune-up. It needs a chain, a timing chain, or some component on the timing that is off. And not too long ago, I actually dealt with a Honda an Accord, 2003, 2004, I believe, and they just put a new camshaft on sensor, and it just kept on coming back. The car was off on the timing, and it had never had a timing chain done. So we had the timing chain done, replaced the tensioner, all the components, seals, and everything, since we were already there, and the water pump, and that code went away. So take that experience and apply it to this vehicle. On the Mazda Millenia, the P0340, the camshaft is actually inside of the rotor, cap and rotor, so pursue that as well. And to me, perhaps the most infamous code on the Mazdas is P0400, EGR flow fault. On the Millenia, it's very easy to pursue, fix. It's actually very accessible. It's right behind the intake manifold, 2 bolts and a gasket. Take it out, clean that passage. It's going to have 2 openings. There's actually a video out there, I believe, by Chris Fix, and he basically shows how to clean it. So you also see it on my videos as well. So make sure that you clean the valve itself. The diaphragm is not broken or anything of the sort. And also, if you can, try to spray some carburetor cleaner behind the intake as well on those ports. You'll be okay. On the 626, it's a whole different story. This valve is at a very uncomfortable position. Very uncomfortable. And if I'm not mistaken, it actually bolts right to the cylinder head that is actually closest to the firewall. Now, it's challenging. So pursue that. Before you condemn the valve, I've actually seen many ports that get clogged. These valves are not actually common for going bad. They do go bad, but not common. P0420, P0430 is a catalyst system efficiency threshold. Usually I see this with high mileage vehicles, and I've seen the catalyst actually just is completely clogged. One. Second of all, I've seen the oxygen sensor there that it's just not reading the way it should. It's just old, bad, damaged, and it's just not reading right. But for the catalyst itself for being replaced, I've seen this on high mileage vehicles. I do not believe in cleaning catalytic converters. I just believe in replacing them. Cleaning them actually is just a band-aid, or may just completely just waste your time. EVAP system fault, P0440. It starts at the back of the car with the gas tank and all the components back there. Make sure that the hoses are not cracked. You may actually have some solenoids back there. Pursue those. And make sure that all the hoses are fine, not broken. They can break over time. EVAP, purge solenoid or circuit fault. I believe I actually talk about that on my Millenia. If you check the valve cover removal, I actually point out at the solenoids. But more often than not, I actually I don't see those go bad, but check them. P04 0500, P0503, vehicle speed sensor or circuit fault. If I'm not mistaken, that actually bolts into the transmission. If I actually get a chance to actually look at the sensor, I will actually point it out to you. This one will make your car run bad. And actually, I've seen this on a Volkswagen where I believe the coolant on the right hand side, it was on a 2002 Mark IV Golf or Jetta. They actually put the wrong coolant. It ate through the housing itself, which is made out of plastic on that Volkswagen. It leaked all over the transmission, and the transmission actually had two of these sensors, and it actually shorted them out. So just keep in mind that this one will actually lock the car into one or second gear. It's gonna run horrible. Pursue it. And if this is you, do not actually force the car into high velocities when you're like stuck on one gear. Other things can actually break if you force it. Alright, idle air control, valve system fault, P0505 and 0510. Now, again, this is just back to basics with the valves or the solenoids or sensors. Check them. If they check out to be fine, good. Move on to the wiring. Make sure that it has a proper connection. Make sure that the pins are not corroded, they're not contaminated, they're nice and clean, and also on the harness. And that's just to the point. All right, this is the last set of codes. P0552 and 553. Power steering, switch or circuit fault. I have not seen a power steering switch on my Mazdas. I have seen them on many other cars, but basically these hardly ever go bad. And I actually bump into one of these on a Nissan Maxima 2004, where I believe somebody attempted to do a repair with a brake job or suspension, and they tore up the harness. And basically that usually is on the high pressure side of the power steering. Usually is right after the little canister. Usually sometimes I see them right on the rack or leaning close to the rack. But that's just about it. Not much to it. Again, check the wiring, check the connector. It's very obvious. I believe I do have a video on this on a Maxima, and check that out on my channel. P0603 and P0605 ECM read only, keep alive memory test. Basically points at the computer. Check that out. Like I said, I really have never had a problem with any Hondas or Mazdas ECMs. So far, to me, they're bulletproof. P0703, brake on or off, switch or fault at the circuit. And this one, and all the cars that I've worked on, this is right on the pedal, on the brake pedal, if right under the dash. So basically, look at the switch. Sometimes they can break. If you worked or did a recent job around the vicinity, make sure that the brake switch is connected. And basically, when you press the brake pedal, you close the circuit by pushing the plunge on that circuit, and basically that's what turns on your lights to the back of the vehicle and lets people know that you're pressing the brakes. P0704, clutch pedal position switch or a fault. Now this actually applies to manual Mazdas, and basically there is a switch behind that clutch pedal, and it's just like the brake switch. Pursue that. Now on the high numbers here, I have seen the clutch pedal position switch also to be at the transmission part, so pursue that as well, just in case. Usually that's the case on those type of cars. I have yet to see a clutch switch right on the pedal, but I have seen the fact that it calls for a pedal position switch because of the mechanics of what goes on when you press that clutch pedal. Other things actually engage with that, so you might be engaging something in the transmission part. Pursue it. P0705, transmission range sensor or fault. If I'm not mistaken, this actually points to the computer on the transmission. Never had a problem with the transmission on this type of cars. They are notorious for the transmissions to go bad, especially when Ford was making the transmission for Mazda and Mazda was making the engine. I've seen these cars being notorious for this type of problems. Around 2000, 2001, 2002, Mazda started making the transmission on these cars, and that's exactly what I own. Never had a problem with them. So catch that for you guys and see if it works for you. Flush a transmission fluid once every year. That's my philosophy. Never had a problem with the transmission. And even though it's actually nice and pink, I'm just picking like that. Just flush it out and off you go. P0710 through 760. Electronic transmission control system fault. Now, this is actually pointing on to the electronic parts of the transmission on this car. And of course, it's going to make the mechanical part of the transmission fail, misbehave, pursue it. But more often than not, I've actually seen check engine codes on the high numbers, 700 and beyond on the thousands, to point at the transmission. So this is it for this type of car. Like I said, I really do not have issues with them. I'm just going to do a quick glance here at the OBD1, which is, I believe, 95 and under. I'm going to go, quick at it. There's actually a different procedure how to get these if you don't have a computer reader scan tool. And these are 2-digit codes. Alright, then of course they evolve to 3-digit codes, and feel free to pause the video if I'm going too fast. Alright, and the last set of codes. Alright, so we're all done with this. Hopefully this video was helpful. I always appreciate a thumbs up, subscribe, more videos to come when, of course, I have the time and more repairs come up about this type of car or similar to them. I'm always, I'm a firm believer in educating, showing you guys what's going on, what tip I can offer you so you can actually save a few dollars. Of course, time is at the essence here. And, trying to keep these cars on the road. To me, they're great cars. Never had a problem with them other than basic maintenance, plugs, brakes, fluids, and keeping the engine bay clean. Never had a problem with them. I love these cars. They may not be the most attractive ones out there or during that time, but to me, what's important is what's under the hood. And these are great cars. I'm trying to keep them on the road, and also help you keep your car on the road and keep the cost to a minimum. If you can do it yourself, certainly you can. I do most of the repairs myself, and if I can do them, you guys can also do them. Thank you for watching and tuning in. Have a good day.